pretty sure it's the Russians meddling and
Well, yeah, Nick and I um, did an interview, and I think the what happened at Lakenheath, and not only at Lakenheath, but
Mm,
even the married quarters of NATO and RAF MOD personnel in Britain,
mm,
immediately following Britain's decision to allow an intermediate kind of cruise missile to be sold and deployed in Ukraine. Um, in Nick Pope and my old age decision, we remember when back in the Cold War that there was a group of bad actors, and these were people who sympathized with the Soviet Union Marxism
mm,
and tended to support that regime and were prepared to carry out actions in Britain. The
mm,
specific case was people who lived near Holyloch who would report American nuclear submarine movements to maybe CND. And
mm,
they just thought they were part of CND, but in fact,
mm.
CND and Marxism today and those kind of things were compromised and were in fact being partially funded by KGB and the Soviet Union. So they didn't realize that they were the Soviets called them useful idiots, which I think is horrible and an amazing title. And Nick and I grew up, were around in that kind of age in the 1980s, where useful idiots was a kind of term he knew about inside the MOD. And my background working on things like BBC Panorama, where we talked a lot about useful idiots. Um, I remember that. So when Lakenheath happened, it seemed very unlikely to be UFOs. It seemed unlikely to be hobby drones, and it certainly wasn't a an operation where the modern day Russia, who was obviously peed off with Britain, sent drones over from the Soviet Union or the Russia today. Sorry, my age. But they could have somehow persuaded British citizens, British nationals, residents of some who had some sympathy towards the Russian position to go and mount an operation either by paying them or that happened used to happen as well, or by more horrible kind of persuasion, threatening them. And I definitely think it was a sign from Russia in Lakenheath. Well, we'll go on and talk about New Jersey, but in the Lakenheath and the British case, I really think it was Russia. I really think they were demonstrating their ability at unconventional warfare. Wake up, Britain!
Mhm.
You can't shoot down a drone with an F-15. You can't. I mean, one goes at 10
Mm,
feet above the ground at 20 miles an hour, and one goes at
mm,
whatever miles an hour. I mean, it's inappropriate. Nick Pope said the British MOD are living in the past. We're fighting yesterday's war.
mm,
And the war today involves unconventional
mm,
methods. And one of the biggest that's been deployed, obviously, in Ukraine by the Ukrainians and Russians are drones. And I think it was a sign to Britain, like, wake up, stop sending missiles to Ukraine, and we know where your air crew's married quarters are. I mean, it wasn't just Lakenheath; it was all over the place in Britain. That these,
mm,
and they purposely wanted to be seen. They weren't spying, they weren't eavesdropping, they weren't clandestine. These were probably hobby-sized drones, maybe slightly bigger, but those exist today. We're not all just DJI drones from Argos. I mean, these bigger drones exist, but they had lights on them, and I think they were sending a message to Britain. Now, the drone scare in America, in the United States, I think is pretty different, and it's very, very interesting, and I think it's been handled really badly by everybody. I can't believe. I mean, I'm a private pilot, and New Jersey's crowded with air traffic control,
mm,
radar, drones. You can track them, and the FAA did bugger all. I mean, Homeland Security. I mean, it obviously was an something of national security because people were worried about it. I think the response for New Jersey politicians was hysterical. I mean, I think that their mayors and their police chiefs and things, I don't think they reacted really well. They didn't reassure the public. If anything, they scared people more. I think I would actually like to say that the drone scare in New Jersey was successful. Whatever it was psychological warfare. I think people were truly rather unsettled. That's rather British. It scared the pants off the New Jersey people because they didn't know what it was and nobody was telling them. Now, what it really was is
being very, very unconventional.
yeah. Yeah. Well, yeah, definitely. If I have to have a T-shirt for my YouTube channel, it'd be a long T-shirt because I'm going to make it into a sentence. It's ever since the Manhattan Project, where a blackboard equation was turned into a weapon, and the military went, "Ooh, that's a good idea." Ever since Trinity, the military have wanted advanced physics weapons that the other side wouldn't know what hit them. And so the amount of money, research into specifically physics, I mean, but also psychology and chemical warfare and things. But if you talk about physics, the amazing developments in stealth. Britain had stealth in the 1950s. We think that stealth fighters were 1980s and 90s. No, they weren't. Britain was the leading place for stealth materials. Marconi built the first kind of radar. They understood how to refract, and I'm not saying reflect, I'm not saying absorb, I'm saying this very specifically refract microwave energy on the surface skin of an airframe. And then it turned into metamaterials, which was even more sophisticated skins. And as it developed, it became more robust because originally it was very fragile. And, that kind of thing means that this secret physics, really good engineering, really good physics has gone on. And, in the UFO community, we continually say the five observables. Well, the five observables come from a military contractor. They are the things that they can observe. They don't have one, maybe, but they can observe how they operate. So, could we build one that does that? Well, that's why they're correlating that, because there's a great interest in building stuff which is unconventional, because it's good military policy. Have they made them? I think so.
Yeah, I think so too. So where in the UK do you think the UK has a kind of Area 51 type of place?
I think it has a number of Area 51s. I mean, I think while you went camping in Suffolk, you were near certainly what was Area 50 and a half, now closed down and now a national trust, called Orford Ness. I mean, Orford Ness, from the birth of Robert Watson Watt testing Tesla's death ray in 1938, stolen from Tesla, right up until it closed, right up to the most brilliant story about Cobra Mist, and its connection to Bawdsey and Sizewell Nuclear Power Station, Bentwaters and Martlesham Heath and Adastral Park are, I mean, it was Britain's secret military test zone for physics specifically, unlike, Porton Down with chemicals and biological warfare, Orford Ness. But there's other places. I mean, part of the wonderful, the UFO that keeps giving, called Calvin, the Calvin story. There is a Marconi, which are now part of BAE Systems in Wharton and other laboratories in Britain. Other sites have a Area 51 military closed test area.
Or Nick Pope told me, but it was, yeah, I mean, it is interesting. I just want to go back to this idea before we go of this of the UK's secret kind of military bases because there's
Yeah.
one I'm going to go investigate in Hertfordshire. It's called Woodcock Hill, uh,
Oh,
and
oh, I can't wait. Good.
it's owned by the Home Office. Officially, it's shut down, but it's not.
Radio station.
Well, yeah, it used to be part of Bletchley Park. It was one of the beacons. It was used in Bletchley Park. Bletchley Park connected to it. That's where its origins come from.
Oh, great.
Now it's allegedly closed down, but I know I've
Oh, yeah.
spoken to the residents. In the last couple of years, they've had letters saying drones are going to be tested. Do not be worried if you see anything unusual. Okay.
Oh, right. Drone,
And then
probably
there's
anti.
also the locals claim there's an underground kind of bunker
Yeah, of
base there, and the
course
field
there is.
there's nothing on it. It's just they can't build on
Yeah.
it, and it's got a lot of high level security, a bit like Porton Down, and I think it is linked to Porton Down in terms of the hierarchy of the government. So it could be linked to that, and
Yeah,
also
there's a government defense authority that deals with all of it.
mm,
They have an acronym, but yeah, yeah, I'm sure it's
so
probably just a
we're gonna
base.
go up and investigate and see if we can see anything.
Fly your drone. No, don't.
We do have a drone actually, but for filming. But we
I
get
know, so do I.
so
Whoa, did
we'll
we
get a drone.
arrested?
Yeah. So
Yeah, I wonder if they're testing anti-drone defense. It's a
mm,
radio, it has a laboratory. It's a good place, a bit out of the way.
yeah,
Um, and with that memo saying you might see drones, they might be doing not flying drones, but disabling drones. I don't know.
possibly. And the other thing as well
We
is that
need to do that.
I actually I actually know someone who worked there, and
Oh, good.
she couldn't tell me obviously what she did, but I know
Right.
she's an astrophysicist. Okay, very very clever.
Oh, oh, right. Okay.
And
Sure.
she told the only thing she told me she spends half the time there and then half the time at MI6, so it's that level, which is interesting.
Oh, it sounds very intriguing.
Yeah, it does, doesn't it?
Yeah, because that connection is interesting, isn't it?
Mm, it is. So,
Sure. Oh, I can't even imagine. Oh, no, get to the bottom of it. Great. Fantastic.
so we'll go and have a
And
look. And also, I've been still
I
getting
remember talking to you, and I'll send you a pie to Brixton Jail. No, I'm joking.
yeah, we'll be a bit careful. But
Right.
the other thing is, I've got a lot of people still messaging me from Mildenhall, which I know is not far from Lakenheath, but
Absolutely.
they're still seeing drones on a nightly basis, and they're being followed or escorted by jets.
Are they? Oh,
Yeah,
right.
and
Yeah,
I'll
I would
show
have.
you.
That's surprising. I would have thought that it was a short, sharp shock by
Yeah,
bad actors, and it stopped because there's no point in doing. There's no point
it's
in doing it anymore because it's happened.
maybe they're just being
Copycat.
careful. I don't know,
Yeah,
but also
weird.
this lady, I'll show you. She's been in. I don't know if you can see it. I'll send you a photo.
Yes,
Been contacted by special forces.
because they want to know what she knows.
Yeah, it's interesting, isn't it? I'm
Yeah.
going to phone this guy when we're filming. I'm going to phone him up on
Oh,
camera,
right.
see what he says. Maybe. So yeah, maybe
No,
do.
no, no. Do I mean?
Mm,
All right. So, Mark, the thing that you and I both do, which is, I think, I mean, my background is in TV and in media, is that we are doing what used to be done by the press,
yeah, yeah, yeah.
and it takes a YouTube investigator, it takes a social
Mm,
media scientist, as I
mm,
call you,
mm,
to actually do this. And
mm,
we're not earning great amount of money for it. We just want answers, and it's
absolutely.
great. I mean, I think you should continue doing it. I certainly,
Mm,
I feel old enough and bold enough living here in France in a farm that I can say what I want. I really don't care. But I mean, I wouldn't, if somebody, occasionally people send me stuff that I go, oh, I wish you hadn't sent me that. But um, And I say to people, please don't send me anything which is definitely classified because I don't want to be have it on my computer.
No, no,
Um,
no.
but you know, people do share stuff which is like, oh, okay, that's kind of interesting.
Mm.
But if it's too sensitive, if it really affects national security, I wouldn't talk about
Oh
it.
no, no, of course
I
not.
draw a line on
Yeah,
that.
me too.
But I
Yeah.
think I'm up for exposing what happened at Rendlesham Forest over 40 years ago. Nick Popes said, I asked him directly, I said, I mean, Nick knows what happened. I
Mm.
mean, Nick Pope said, if you understand Rendlesham, you understand the true nature of UAP. I mean,
Yeah.
that's his classic quote. Margaret Thatcher said,
Mm.
it wasn't aliens and you can't tell the people. Both of those phrases
Mm.
are absolutely true. Um, um, but you need to understand why they're true, and then you start getting to the bottom of what actually was going on in Suffolk, and it's much more interesting than hieroglyphs telling you where the pyramids of Giza are, you know, on a triangular craft.
Yeah.
That story is fantastically interesting of why that
Mm.
you know why that story is even out there. I mean, it's really, really what happened to the poor experiences, the poor U.S. Air Force witnesses,
Well, this
was
is it. I
absolutely
mean, were they
horrible.
interrogated and given sodium pentothal? Is that
Some of
possibility?
them were, not
Mm.
all of them, but some of them were. Some of them were really scared. Some
Mm.
of them were never have spoken about it. Other people took early retirement.
Mm.
I spoke to somebody who will remain nameless, who was one of the witnesses. I'm not saying which one, somebody who doesn't talk.
Mm.
And he was a man, is, you know, definitely got PTSD
Mm.
and still about what happened, but not about you know, an encounter
Yeah.
with an alien blobby, but what happened to him afterwards
Yeah.
by his interrogation by OSI in a underground building in Bentwaters. He's absolutely furious at them, you know, and is damaged today. And John Burroughs, I
Mm.
mean, his story is you know, it basically is proof of disclosure if you're American. I don't care because Britain's already disclosed everything. We know that UAP are real. But as the United States doesn't admit that yet, John Burroughs is proof because they knew that he was injured by something man-made. They knew he was injured.
Mm.
They studied his injuries. They denied his claim for 15 years. And when John pulled out the rabbit out of his hat of producing the Condign report, which talks about U.S. Air Force people being injured by something in Rendlesham Forest. Well, they call it the twin bases of Woodbridge and Brentwaters
Yeah.
in the Condign report. He produced that to the VA, the Veterans Association, and the DOT settled his claim and gave him the health care that he needed. So they admitted that they always knew what it was. They just didn't want to, you know, go there. And you know, for me, if you are looking for evidence that the United States knew what was going on, knew that they were working on advanced stuff, and were trying to cover up. John Burroughs' case is the classic case.
Mm.
Um, uh, they knew, they covered it up, and eventually they admitted it. And in the court, I mean, the classic thing that John told me is when his case was settled, the DOD, no, he was told by his lawyer that the DOD had told her
Mm.
that John Burroughs' case is settled, but wait for what I'm about to say here. It's shocking. They told John Burroughs's advisor, a woman called Cheryl, who worked with his senator, John Burroughs will never be told what actually injured him. Okay, that's what they said to her, and she told John. So I mean, it's an amazing cover up of what actually happened. You know, and it wasn't little green men. I mean, they knew what affected him. They knew what they were doing, and they knew that it was dangerous.
Mm.
But was there something more to it? Well, I mean, maybe. Yeah, I don't know. It's good. It's good. One of the best cases ever
Yeah.
because we have witnesses and injuries.
I mean, it's kind of in the English UFO mythology folklore now, isn't it, really?
Well, it should be worldwide because it exposes the issue
Mm,
of military weaponization of UAP. I
mm,
mean,
mm,
the effects, the things that they were messing with are related to the phenomenon.
mm,
You know, they were looking at those kind of physics. They were looking at advanced physics that could be weaponized.
mm,
You know, as John James Warrow would say. I mean, that's his line: weaponization of physics, of
mm,
UAP. I mean, that's exactly what they were doing. I
mm.
mean, but is it related to genuine UAP? Yeah, maybe they were looking at the phenomenon, which definitely exists.
Yeah.
Don't think, viewers, that I don't think it exists. I'm a really big person that says UAP are real. You know,
Mm.
people see things all over the world, not just in Rendlesham, not just in Area
Totally.
51. They see them in every country of the world because they exist and they're real. What are they? Um, it's really hard because they're really hard to study. Yeah, but
Yeah.
UAP exist.
Yeah. No, no, I think so too. And what about uh, you say there is proof, uh,
Right.
scene proof. Is that going to be released to the public ever or?
Well, that's the story, Mark. I mean, both SETI and Breakthrough Listen and are for some reason not. I mean, they've gone really quiet
Mm,
about it.
mm,
I mean, the story that I was told that BLC1, which stands for Breakthrough Listen Candidate One, Candidate One being a SETI candidate that was a known radio source, was covered up by Breakthrough Listen, in my opinion. The chances are that their explanation that it was man-made technology. Can I tell you what they're saying and why it's
please do.
here's the explanation. Oh, good. I can use my green blobby thing. If you could, oh no, here it is. Yeah. So I'm just charging my bicycle lights. So here's Alpha Centauri and here's Parkes Radio Telescope in Australia.
Mhm,
And Parkes, oh, I'm really backwards because it's a camera. Parkes is looking at a source, and when they point away from it, it goes, and
mhm,
when they point to it, it's there. When they point the other way, it goes. So it's a single point
mhm,
source,
mhm.
right? And it's a narrowband frequency not used by man. It's
Uh-huh.
electromagnetic.
Sure.
And there's another piece of evidence, which is the clincher I'll go on to. What Breakthrough Listener are saying
Mhm,
is that it's a satellite
mhm,
that is in lockstep with Alpha Centauri that
mhm,
matches its transit through the sky.
mhm,
Oh, that's pretty
mhm.
good.
Yeah.
It's obviously not. It's obviously geostationary but moving. How does that work? And it's using frequencies that is are man-made, but not the frequencies that people use in satellites. Really?
Yeah.
Well, okay.
Yeah.
And then they published the report, and then Parkes came back after the report. I believe this is slightly ambiguous, and said not only is it a man-made satellite using frequencies that humans don't use, that's in lockstep with our telescope,
Mm,
like crazy, but
mm,
it's also Doppler shifting, means it's
yeah.
orbiting. Well, no, this Occam's razor. I mean, is it a man-made satellite? Is there one? No. Is it transmitting in those frequencies? Do satellites transmit in those frequencies? No. Is it rotating just the same speed as the exoplanet in that star system? No. So is it more likely to be that planet? Yes. I mean, so why are they covering it up? And why are they only, and I've only got that evidence from BLC Candidate One, BL Candidate One. There's at least 15 other really good technological sources. The
Mm,
head of Breakthrough Listen isn't only just looking for technology, he's also looking for biosignatures. He's looking for all kinds of signatures.
mm,
And I think the other enormous evidence is that we have tools in 2024, 2025 to actually find that we're not alone in the universe. I mean, a Cambridge group have done a spectral analysis of a different, not the same, a different exoplanet, and
mhm,
they found signs of what is obviously biological life in
mm,
the atmosphere. And is that published and saying, I think we have confirmation we're not alone in the universe? No. Is other technological signatures supposedly that have probably been found are lights, or shiny stuff that causes, because we have the tools. James Webb is amazing, but
Mhm.
also the radio telescopes are now no longer one telescope. They're all networked.
That's
A
right.
company in Holland called Astron networks every telescope in the world that is part of their group,
Mhm.
and they do AI analysis of broadband multi-frequency, looking for, and it's paid for by Breakthrough Listen partially, and the European Union through the Horizon Project. I mean, we have the evidence. Why aren't they telling us?
Well, yeah.
And
Why? Have you got
why?
any
Mhm.
theories? Why?
Yeah, well, so the original story broke from a senior person in EU radio astronomy who
Mm.
wants to remain nameless, and he told me about Astron, and he told me about the BLC-1 signal, how it's found, and then when the shit hit the fan, and everybody. Sabine Horsfelder and John Goodyear all called me a effing idiot, and it doesn't exist. And you should read the Breakthrough Listen fake paper. Sorry, Breakthrough Listen. Or this is I went back to my man and said, "What's going on? I'm looking like a complete twat."
Yeah.
And he said, "No, you're not. What's going on is that there is a governments have been informed.
Mhm.
The UK government, the Department of Trade and Industry, wrote a report, The Exploitation of Extraterrestrials. They wrote that for the
Well,
Keir Starmer government.
mm,
The Vatican published a protocol for bishops,
mm,
but the public haven't been informed because, and this is really interesting, I didn't know this, but SETI, and I'm surprised that Breakthrough Listen are going along with this, but it kind of makes sense.
mm,
This guy told me the problem is if you come out as SETI and say, we think we've got very good evidence that
mm,
we found a biological or technological signature of an alien race. The news of the world, the Daily Mail,
yeah.
Fox News, and News Nation will immediately say, what did they look like? Well,
Yeah.
we didn't,
Yeah.
what are they saying? Well, those two are enormous leaps from detecting
Yeah.
possibly, maybe, that there's evidence way out there that we can just barely detect to what color are their socks? I mean, so he said they don't want to publish it until they're at least two steps ahead of the obvious effing questions.
Right.
And that's what they're doing right now.
Okay.
They're gathering as much evidence as they can and are waiting. Maybe there's some unseen hand of advice saying,
Oh yeah.
not great timing.
Who would that ultimate hand be? Who would that be?
I have no idea because who would have that?
Who would
Because
be the,
SETI seem quite independent. Breakthrough Listener, basically Yuri Milner's self-funded research group.
yeah.
Breakthrough does lots of other things, and the other people who probably have the evidence are China and
Yeah.
Russia, who are very big on radio telescopes, and I can't. It would be really sad if SETI and Breakthrough Listen get pipped to the post by China, which they might. The China big dish can do the radio telescope stuff that SETI can do.
Mm,
That it's big. It's bigger than. I mean, it was bigger than Arecibo type dish, and it's as good as Green Bank.
mm.
It's probably not as good as there's a brilliant new telescope being built in Australia called the Square Kilometre Array, which is the real